Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. If you desire to intimately connect with yourself, your significant other, children, family, friends, community, and higher power, this show is for you. We explore intimate topics, inspiring life stories, spirituality, and insightful tips on strengthening relationships. The show is hosted by Dr. April and her co-host, Coach K. Let's get this episode of the Bringing Intimacy Back show started. We share with you today the secret power to intimacy.
Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. Sorry, you guys, for last week for not being with you guys, but I'm so excited to be back. And our new starting time, as you see, is a little bit later, but believe me, that's going to be a fabulous thing that we're going to start at 3:30. And we're going to be here every week for you guys to provide you a lot of different stuff about intimacy. So, hey, Coach K, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It's been an exciting week with Valentine's, but you know what happened before Valentine's? Do you remember what happened before Valentine's this week?
Oh, my memory is horrible.
Okay, well, look behind you. It was the Super Bowl.
Oh, yes. That was,
Yes. How did you? Yeah, I love Mary J. Blige. Yes. Did you see
I
her
am a
performance?
fanatic. I did. I literally watched the whole first half, so I made sure I did not miss halftime.
Yes.
It was awesome. It
Yes.
it was awesome.
Yes. I think they just did a very good job of bringing the music of our culture out there in such, also even an intimate kind of way.
It really did, because it touched a lot of people. Just kind of watching some of the clips that people were putting up, people were getting emotional because it brought you back to a younger day, maybe a day of peace, or just hearing, like, as you see, I have her on my wall. It just, it melts your heart. It was awesome.
Good. Which is also kind of what we're talking about today in the sense of intimacy. There's so many different forms of intimacy. And so that's our topic today, which I'm so excited about getting into that. But before we get into our topic, our charity of the month is the lovefoundation.com. It's a great website, www.thelovefoundation.com. And they provide information to help people in communities, in society, understand unconditional love.
Necessary.
Yes, yeah. When I say that terminology to you, what do you think about unconditional
I
love?
think of I really think about just the no boundaries when it comes to love, not looking for reciprocation, not looking for anything in return, just open acceptance and open giving.
Yeah, and which is so hard for sometimes some couples. And I know you've been married for up to a number of years. Yes, and we just had Valentine's Day. Yeah, how was your Valentine's Day?
It was nice. It was Monday for us, because
Well, I
we
think it was Monday
are
for everybody, Coach K.
it was because we date a lot, and so when it comes to Valentine's Day, when we want to go to our favorite restaurant, it's like booked with folks. So it's like I cooked a nice steak dinner at home. My husband made sure that he was off a little bit early, and so we were able to just enjoy us, and that's what it was all about, honestly.
Oh, awesome. Yes. And it's also kind of like you said, as we were talking about this unconditional love and stuff. And if anyone who's out there listening and they want to share how their Valentine was, please feel free to hit us up on any of the social media. And happy Valentine's related to all of you guys and Mara, who's also out there listening. But yeah, I think with Valentine's and even in a relationship, it is about giving unconditionally, that sacrifice. of, hey, putting myself out there and not expecting anything in return.
Yeah, that's huge, especially around this particular holiday. Because I did a segment with some other folks, and it was this thing about reciprocation. If I buy this and I expect that, and I'm like, should that be the thought process? If you are open to give or share time, waiting for something back, that kind of it puts up that boundary of you are conditionally loving me or enjoying me or giving me. So yeah, that was important to know around this time.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. And so as we on this show, of course, always talk about intimacy. And I'm glad that you and I just get a chance to talk about it. Yes. Because it's in your, you do intimacy and love. That's your brand. And it's also in my brand of intimacy. How do you define intimacy, especially as it relates to your brand?
For me, it's the connection starting with yourself, how delicate you are with yourself, how lovely you are with yourself, and getting to the place where you're able to fill yourself with your own love, your own care and touch, and then going out into the world so that you can properly receive that deeper connection. A lot of times intimacy is more unseen than seen. And that's what I love about, just when I think of intimacy, I really think of closing my eyes and being able to know that my husband just walked into the room because I can feel his presence, things of that nature.
Wow, I love that you put it's like unseen more than seen. And so for me, intimacy also starts with your higher power, that connection there, and talking about the unseen. And even
Mhm.
as I created a while back this show here, I felt it was an intimate moment that God told me to talk about intimacy. And then, like you said, it's also that relation with self. And then, of course, bringing all that together when you also have it with a partner or when you're with loved ones, just that intimate moment of feeling like, being authentic. And I think with intimacy, I also see it as, how can I put it, that your body, your mind, your spirit, and soul are all in the same time zone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
being present. That,
being
ooh,
present.
I just see a straight line when you say that. Having those all presently aligned is just probably one of those indescribable feelings.
Yes. Yes, and I hope a lot of our guests were able to feel that this week in connection of their Valentines and stuff. But we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, I really would love to get into the meat and bones of all the different forms of intimacy. We'll take a break, and we'll be back in a moment.
Are you wanting a vacation in paradise? A vacation to rekindle the passion? A vacation without the kids? A vacation where you can learn how to communicate, where you and your partner actually hear each other and gain insight? If so, vacation counseling is your next vacation. Dr. April Brown has created vacation counseling in Southwest Florida as a perfect option for you and your partner. Our retreats are one couple at a time. We have a variety of packages available to choose from, including virtual couples retreats. If you and your partner are interested in vacation counseling, please visit us at vacationcounseling.com for more information on pricing and packages. Also, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. To keep track of the latest news, stories, activities, or coupons on vacation counseling and Dr. April's other services, we encourage you to sign up to receive a monthly newsletter called Intimate Connections at draprilbrown.com. Remember, if you and your partner are struggling with communication and intimacy, and you all are looking for a retreat to connect, vacation counseling can be your next vacation in Southwest Florida.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy is real. So today on the show, we are talking about intimacy and all its different formats. And if you're out there listening and you want more information about intimacy, or you want to share about your Valentines and how you felt connected with your partner, that would be wonderful. So, Coach K, as we were talking, one of the forms you first mentioned is self intimacy, which is that intimacy you feel with self, which I think is so important.
Absolutely. It's almost like the baseline of your adult experiences in intimacy, because how you experience yourself pretty much dictates how you're going to experience others.
Hmm. Yeah. And you know what I've noticed a lot in my therapy session is that sometimes when couples struggle, or even people out in the dating world struggle with dating or connecting with their significant other, it's because they're also struggling with that intimate part of themselves.
Yeah.
Whether they're overexhausted is one aspect, but also sometimes they don't feel sexy, and that is so critical.
It really is. And I've worked with a client, and after she had her baby, it's almost that, okay, I'm no longer this sexy wife. I'm this mom. I can't be sexy. And she almost lost that intimate connection of sexy for herself. And thus it almost, it translated over into the marriage. And so that's why, how you experience yourself is absolutely how others will experience you.
Definitely, yeah. And even like you said, it's just that feeling of sexiness, which is critical, and sometimes even feeling sexy. One way that as a person can feel sexy is learning how to be very creative.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So being
Absolutely.
creative, yes, and even in the sense of a relationship, being creative and creating that creative intimacy, because that's another form of intimacy, is being creative.
Creativity is probably going to be super important with that entire, just the it's almost like the big umbrella, because when you say the word sexy, that doesn't look the same for everyone.
Hmm.
And so a lot of times, somebody we may have seen on TV, that someone's sexy, they're wearing this
Right.
nice tight red dress and they have on the heels. And for me, that may not make me feel sexy. So I have to get a little creative with it. What can I put on? Maybe I put on some nice tight jeans and a nice red top and some wedges. So I had to get creative with my sexy, because otherwise, I don't want to wear a dress.
Yeah, and for me, one of the things that makes me feel sexy, I love intelligence.
Ooh,
Yes, yes. And so if and I know and intelligence is another form of intimacy, but finding something very intellectual and being creative with it has really, like, for me, makes me feel sexy in some aspect.
yeah,
Does that make sense?
it makes absolute sense. It's like when you're discussing something, and next thing you know, you guys are in the bathroom at somebody's house, and it's like, we were just talking about this thing, but your mind starts to connect, and you just, yeah, another inexplicable feeling with the right person.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. If anybody out there is listening, and thanks, Shaminda, out there for listening, if you have anything that you want to add to this conversation. But yeah, like you were saying, sometimes even with intimacy, as you're saying, um, sometimes you're with someone and then all of a sudden you're So were you thinking doing a quickie in the bathroom or?
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
And those little moments right there are just everything, you know,
Hmm.
because that creates a new mental memory for further down the line where you guys are maybe at the fair and you shoot that look at each other because the topic of whatever was happening at the time comes up. And so now you have that, oh, you remember last time we talked about that, haha, you know, that
Yeah.
inside joke.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and another form of intimacy that people don't think about is just what you're just talking about, joking, that humor. Laughter is so good for intimacy. I'm also mental health, but it's also good for decreasing your anxiety. That humor, that laughter, it just makes you feel so relaxed.
Yeah, and I believe that's where, you know, when people are more friends first,
Hmm.
because, you know, typically with your friends, you're often having fun, you're
Right.
laughing. And so when you start to build that foundation on humor and that connection, you know, sometimes, you know, friendship that need to go in a different direction, but you know, you're saying that you're like my husband, I will consider my best friend because we can joke about and sometimes we probably joke too much in the wrong times, but that's a foundational piece for us and
Hmm.
we love it.
Right, right. Uh when I do therapy, there's a part that I do through Gottman that talks about couples sometimes have things that they don't, it's called perpetual issues. In other words, that they're different on. Like one's always early, one's always late. But when you
Hmm.
have the humor, to laugh about it, it makes so much connection that sometimes instead of arguing about, well, you're always late, but laughing about it, having some humor. And like you said, the core of that is that friendship base, that friendship
Yeah.
intimacy.
Oh, absolutely. And it changes the mood because somebody could be upset. You're always late. And, you know, the other person who's late cracks a good joke and boom, instantly you bring those happy hormones back up. And now we're all in a better place.
Yes. Yeah. And it's really core to have that friendship. But so many times I think people rush into dating. Oh, well, I mean, they're dating, but they rush into a commitment without
Yeah,
developing friendship.
absolutely. And then it's like, oh, well, this person's changed. It's like, maybe you just didn't know them as well as you could have known them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But when people, I mean, I like you guys have been, and there's other couples and other people in my life that time has changed. It's, as time goes on, you do change. But it's so important to have that friendship, but also so important to have that good communication. And you would,
Absolutely, because I've seen jokes go horribly wrong if communication surrounding everything else is not where it should be.
hmm. Yeah, yeah. And when you're talking about with intimacy, it's being able to be okay to be authentic
Mm,
and to be
yes,
able to express yourself in such a way that you're not pulling down the other partner and a true intimacy.
absolutely. Communication, and I've literally, and I know you can attest to this, you're sitting there watching your clients have a conversation with each other, and you're almost cringing, like, ooh, you know, when I know what you mean, but the way you just degraded your partner just now, this is, you know, why the communication typically goes completely out the window. And there's a better way to say that. And here's what it looks like. So communication is everything, especially that authenticity of it. You know, sometimes when there's maybe some things that happened, you know, in our past and you were never taken seriously or everyone always overtalked you. And so now you're in this marriage and your goal is to always be the first to say something or always make sure that you feel great not realizing that the whole time you're putting your partner down. So learning how to communicate, wow, it's that intimacy is right up there at the top. What, top two?
Yes. Yes, definitely. Kind of just what you were saying. I think that communication intimacy is really impacted also by self, because you really need to know when you're talking with your partner, when you start to get flooded, how to learn how to, and couples laugh at me because I say it all the time, and I truly believe this, my own relationships, that with your partner, you need to have the best customer service ever, better than you do with, the your client or customers at the store. You need to have that. And when you start to
Yeah,
get upset, instead of just spilling out whatever, being able to check yourself and maybe saying, "Hey, I need time to step away before I say something that I'm going to later on regret." So, yeah.
that definitely matters. Timing is everything. But being able to then come back and have that conversation. I love that you said, it's that customer service, that client service, because it's in everything. I literally this weekend had a situation where, for me, I always come first. That's
Okay.
just me.
Yes.
But my husband, we were at an event, and I said, go get the rest of our stuff out of the car, and he helped somebody bring their stuff up the stairs, which I was fine with. It was one of the other vendors. So then when he went back out, he came back up with someone else's stuff, and I was like, whoa, okay. At this point, I can't do what I need to do. And I understand, you were raised that you help other people. But moving forward, I need you to think about me and what needs to happen here, and then just let that person know you'll come back. So we're always able to, in the moment, have those conversations where it's not snarky, it's not, so that the rest of that event, I'm not harboring this, I know he didn't, and he's feeling that, and we don't have a good time. So timing is everything. And in
Hmm.
that case, I knew that I needed to have that conversation now versus allowing it to just fester throughout the next 6 hours that we're at this event, and then it blow up at home.
Right. Right. So what you're also dealing with right there is you address that emotion, because
Yeah,
that emotional intimacy is key. You didn't let it build up. And
absolutely.
yes, yeah, I think for a lot of couples, for a lot of people, sometimes whether they don't have that self intimacy of self control or understanding their own stuff, they let things build up because they're afraid to say something to their partner or they're too mad or whatever. And then it explodes.
Yes.
Yes.
And then they can't figure out, well, where did this come from. It's like, oh, that tiny little grain of salt that got into the cogwheel, that stopped everything.
Right.
We could have just brushed that out of there. But being able to learn emotional intelligence early on in life has really helped me, just in general. Even having 5 children, being able to not, when I get upset, just want to say versus, let me step back, let me look at the entire situation before I say something to you that will hurt me and you,
Hmm.
and it will alter our entire relationship ongoing.
You know what? You just said something important, Coach K. Before you say something that hurts you and the other person. Do you know, many
Yes.
times I don't think people really think about how they say things and how it may hurt themselves.
Yeah. And it festers. Once it comes out of your mouth, you realize that, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have said it. So now you have to hold on to that emotion, that negative emotion of what you just said, not realizing that now it's probably going to spew into other areas. So yeah, I've learned so much. Just
Yeah. But I think also what may, I don't know what in your situation, if you have other siblings, but what many couples don't realize how to do is to resolve conflict.
Right.
what you were just talking about. How do you resolve conflict when something goes wrong? How do you go about talking about it, feeling about it, dealing with it? That conflict intimacy that I do think should be start training even as, little as, 2 or 3. So as you get
Yeah.
older, yeah.
Yeah. I have one sister. My husband has one brother.
Okay.
And the one thing that we vowed together is that for our 5 children, we would always make sure that we fostered positive relationships among them. Their
Mm-hmm.
ages 10 through 22. And we allowed them to have their conflict, but we always want to walk them through how they could have better handled the situation. And I don't believe, that was, in my time of growing up, it was, y'all gonna either stop that noise, I'm gonna pop both of y'all, or take it
Yes.
outside and deal with it. We didn't really get the intervention. And so we
Yes.
wanted to make sure that they understood how to resolve conflict, because these little people are going to go into someone's world. And as me being an HR manager, I've dealt with these folks, because I don't want my children to be without being able to, have that conflict intimacy and understand how to communicate properly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I kind of grew up as an only kid a little bit, but I was around a lot of my cousins in
Mhm.
some aspect because my brother's 5 years older than me. So that helped me just being around
Uh-huh.
cousins. Yeah. And I have an only kid. And so what I did is I actually made sure she joined a lot of different groups, so she can be able to learn. And we talked about conflict and stuff because when you enter in an intimate relationship, someone that you chose to be with and that you love, um, they are going to hurt your feelings. I mean,
Yeah.
every relationship, yeah.
Yeah,
But what are you going
absolutely.
to do about it?
Unknowing.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the important piece is, do I get revenge,
right,
or do I understand and talk it through?
right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I've worked dealt with couples who, if one person's had an affair, then the other person says, "Well, I'm going to go and do the same thing," which is what you said, revenge, which does not resolve conflict at all. Or if one person
Mhm.
calls a person a name, then I'm going to call you a name. That doesn't resolve conflict.
Oh my gracious. It just adds additional lighter fluid to the flame.
Hmm. Yes. Yeah. And so, as we've been talking about conflict communication and emotional intimacy, um, on your end, and then I'll also discuss on my end, what tips do you have for people who are dealing with conflict on how you can resolve it?
One of the exercises that I love for my clients to do is the speak, absorb, regurgitate.
Mm.
And with that practice is allowing someone to speak, then you taking time to absorb it, and then you regurgitate what you heard. That one exercise helps to, you know, kind of weed out some of the parts that were made up, because it happens many times. So that helps to lower conflict. Um, I also always ask my clients and even our children, look at this situation from a 360 view, not from just the receiver of the information. Why did this person say this? What, maybe they said it to you because they thought X, Y, and Z, or they heard X, Y, and Z. So understanding the why it's happening and seeing the conversation from a full 360 view versus your 180 is super helpful. So those are 2 tips I have, and I'd love to hear yours.
Okay. I do some similar in the sense of the speak, observe. What I also encourage people sometime is when they are listening, what I call the active listening. You have one person talk, the other person is actively listening. is to take notes, because when
Mm,
they are writing, they're actually really trying to hear their partner, and they're not necessarily commenting. So if you
yes.
take notes, you're really paying attention to what is happening. I found that that has been really helpful. And also validating a person's concern and sticking to one topic, not jumping to, well, you didn't do
Yeah.
the dishes, to you didn't pick up the kid, to, you had an affair last week, or
Confusing the situation.
yes, 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 yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's so important. What we're talking about is actually being able to hear your partner.
I love that validation piece because many
Mhm.
times, yes, people want to be heard, but they also want to ensure that their feelings are validated, you know, whether they're right or they're wrong or indifferent. Just understand what I'm saying and where I'm coming from. So I love that you brought that part up.
Right, right. And that is so important, especially in these times when we've had so much stuff. Actually, we've gone through 2 years of almost, well, it has been, not almost, a crisis
Yeah,
with the pandemic, prices going up, supply chain difficulties. Yes. People
yeah.
being sick. Yes. All the racial and
Frustrations.
gender tendencies. Yeah. And so, how a couple deals with a crisis, in fact, of this crisis intimacy, is really important, because I don't know about you, but a lot of relationships did not make it through these last 2 years, 2 or 3 years.
They did not. And what I believe is many things that were easily hidden or just kind of ignored because everyone got up and they went to work. So it's like, I only have to be inside of these four walls with this person for approximately 6 to 8 hours. And for about at least over 3 quarters of that time, I'm asleep. So when the crisis hit, everyone's at home. So you're frustrated about that. Everything that was already happening is now in your face. So it's escalated. And because I don't think a lot of couples understand the importance of maintenance on a marriage or relationship, those tools weren't there. So how do
Yeah.
we address this? We do maintenance on our cars yearly by law. We do
Mhm.
maintenance on our houses all the time. We're always touching up paint, but we don't think about the maintenance that could be utilized in a marriage or a relationship so that when those times come up, your tire blows, oh, I call the insurance because I know how to do that. I have a spare tire in the trunk. But when you hit a rough patch in the marriage or relationship and you haven't really done maintenance to know, oh, I can pull this tool out of my tool belt, the
Right.
communication tool. I can practice this new form of intimacy that I learned, a year ago in a maintenance session. So, unfortunately, a lot of relationships did not fare out. A lot of people, I think, learned about themselves,
Mhm.
and it's possible they weren't really happy with what they found out about themselves, and so they pushed the other party away as well. So, a lot of things happen. What are your thoughts on that?
Right. I love, but I'm just blown away, and I like the idea of you talking about maintenance. How it's
Yeah.
so important that when you're in a crisis, people have had deaths, they've had businesses go up, financial issues, being stuck home with children, or sending your child, just a variety of stuff. So, what do you do when you're in this crisis? And I get the calls all the time. Well, this person's thinking of divorce, this person's separation. But like you said, there's got to be some form of maintenance, or you have to have a toolbox of how do we realize that we're unhappy, and we need
Yeah.
to figure out ways to connect. And of course, one of the things we've been talking about is number one, is addressing it, talking about it, in a healthy manner.
Yeah.
Yes.
You want to keep away from dirty fighting. that's that's definitely one thing we want to avoid. That temporary I feel good because I just, you know, I got you good. I said this thing. I know it hurt you
Right.
to your core. And so staying away from things like that. Having conversations with yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really upset. Go look in the mirror, look at yourself and say, what are we upset about? What just happened?
Right.
And what are we going to do to address our part in this before we go and have this conversation
Mm-hmm.
with our other half and try to tell them what they need to do to fix
Right.
this
I
thing?
gotta look inside. Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes it means calling a therapist or
Yes.
talking with a third party, and in the sense of talking with a third party that isn't biased.
Absolutely. One of the
Whether it's with a pastor, yes,
Yep.
yeah, or a certain family member that is not biased, but getting extra help is critical. Or even, as we're going to later on talk about, is going on a retreat or
Yeah.
something, finding the tools.
Absolutely. One of the comments that a client, I worked with a couple, and the gentleman, he was the one that kind of booked me, but he said, the one thing I will say, you don't have favorites. I was like, no, I don't. I have I
Right,
have two people that I want to help to communicate. So my only favorites live in my household. So
right, right. Yeah, yeah. Just and the same with me. When you go to couples counseling, the couple is the client, so
yeah,
there is no bias on one end or the other end, which is really helpful. But it helps to provide the tools of, because crises are going to happen in a relationship. You're going to have, and I say it that sometimes a couple get together and they're able to walk together on the beach.
hmm,
But there's sometimes it comes where one has to carry the other
yeah,
throughout the relationship. And sometimes you both have to crawl. But the point is never to let go of the other.
absolutely. I love that. Literally, I'm visualizing, that whole scenario. We're walking a person, then maybe I feel faint and you have to carry me.
Right. 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 And that's okay. Kind of what you were talking about as we started this whole thing is that unconditional love.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
necessary. Recognizing sometimes seeing what your partner needs before they, even if you see that they're lagging behind a little bit, saying, all right, let me carry you for a little bit, or let's stop and sit. Anticipation of the needs can be helpful.
Right. Definitely. And it can help bring everything together. So it's also, which one of the things that I like you said earlier, it's so important to, when you are doing well in a relationship or doing okay, it's to always continue to have those date nights.
Yes,
Yeah, that
I take them
activity,
serious.
intimacy. Yes, yes, because that helps even things out in
Hmm.
some aspect, or you can remember, hey, I remember we have these good times here. That just because we are disagreeing about XYZ or we have this conflict, it doesn't mean that the whole relationship is done and over with.
It's
Feeling
what I like
secure.
to right. It's filling your intimacy bank. I love to tell couples that when you do things like that, you add to your intimacy bank, because there's going to be a day where you just don't like the other person. Let's just be real.
Right.
And so you just go to the intimacy bank and you say, I need to make a withdrawal of a good moment that we had because I don't like him right now.
Yeah, I'm thinking of one tip that I sometimes, and I've done, and I've given this to clients, is having a space in your house that celebrates the relationship, whether it's like pictures or a variety of things. So when you're not in cohesive with your partner and you're like, oh, I'm upset, you go sit there and remind yourself what's really important.
That's awesome. I love having that full space. I love that.
Yeah.
At our retreat, we did a painting, and that's one thing I like to do is this sip and paint, and it's for them to take home and put on their wall. And I didn't even think of it as an area, so that it makes complete sense to me.
Yeah. Good. Good. Yes. And having your couples paint is going back to I think one of the first intimacies we talked, which is about being creative,
Hmm.
enjoying things together, having activities, also doing community service. It's just being together, being able to connect in a true intimate manner.
Yes, so necessary.
Yeah. Good. Yes. All right. Yes. Well, we're going to take a break, but when we come back, I would love for us to share with our audience about our different retreats and on all these forms of intimacy and how they can connect with us. We'll be back in a moment.
It's time for the Fools in Love Couples Retreat. Join Coach K for a weekend of sharing, exploring, and learning all about the amazing world of relationships and marriage. You will explore and discuss topics such as communication, intimacy, sex, work-life balance, infidelity, and more. For further information on the Fools in Love Couples Retreat, visit foolsinlove2022.eventbrite.com or info@loveandintimacy101.com.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy, where intimacy is real. Well, Coach K and I have been talking about the variety of intimacies and how couples can connect, especially now if you're out there and you're listening. And let's say you had a great Valentine's or a not so great Valentine's, and you want to, increase your intimacy tool. We both have different retreat experience that you can join. So, Coach K, tell us a little bit about your upcoming retreat coming up.
Absolutely. So I have an annual retreat. It's going to be March the 31st through April the 4th. Some people may decide to come in on April the 1st, and it's called Fools in Love Couples Retreat. It's on April Fool's weekend every year. And it's just a time to just reconnect, re-engage. And this year we are focusing on communication, sex and intimacy. And I put it S.E.X, and it's on purpose. And then just taking that deeper dive. So right here in beautiful Williamsburg, Virginia. And if anyone's interested in learning about that, definitely feel free to let me know. We have 3 more spots left because we're only taking 5 couples. You want to keep that intimate as possible. How about your retreat?
Okay. Yeah. So I have a upcoming Costa Rica retreat that I just put out there for June 13th through the 17th. And at that retreat, we're also doing some intimacy things, from creative activities, intimacy of doing zip lining, but also some emotional communication. We're going to create different art pieces, and we're also going to do some sexual intimacy on learning how to touch your partner and being able to actually being able to be in the present moment with your partner without any distraction. So, and we have a few hours of couples counseling. So we're really looking forward to that retreat. We also have and on that retreat, we only have like you say, a small amount, about 4 to 5 couples. And we also have a retreat here in Florida that we have all the time, and it's 1 couple at a time. And you sign up, and we provide an intimate experience that is just unique to that particular couple. So those are our retreats coming up. Yeah. So if you're
That's
out there
awesome.
and you're thinking about, well, I don't know if I should do a retreat, one of the things that I say to people, because I do couples counseling and I do retreats, and I'd love to hear Coach K's opinion. But I think in the retreat part, you're able to work on something a little bit longer. You have no distractions. You're really focusing on yourself and your partner. And that is the sole purpose. When you're doing couples counseling, which I do, and I love doing that, you go for an hour, then you stop.
Hmm.
and you come back a week or 2 weeks and you go and you stop. But retreats are more intense. And so, yes.
Yeah. And it takes you out of your normal environment, which is very helpful when you're looking to, deepen your connection or learn new things. Coming out of your element, your level of comfort is going to almost force you to pay attention to what's in front of you a little more.
Yes, definitely. Yes. So this has been a wonderful topic. Next week, Coach K and I will be back, and we're going to talk specifically more about sex because we didn't talk about that. Yes, that's what we're going to talk. We're both sexologists, sex therapists, so we're looking forward to that. On February 24th, we're going to talk about dating and relationship. March 3rd, we're going to we'll talk about more specifically about our retreats. I will actually be on a retreat that I will show you guys down in Costa Rica. And on March 10th, we'll have Jerry Few on how to handle conflict. This has been the Bringing Intimacy Back show. Thank you, Coach K, and I look forward to connecting again with you next week.
Absolutely. I appreciate you so much and everybody out there that joined us.
All right. Take care. We'll see you all next week at 3:30 our new time.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Bringing Intimacy Back. We hope you enjoyed it. You can also find us at bringingintimacyback.com or Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter. For Dr. April Brown's 4-book series, Improving Intimacy, you can also find her as an author on Amazon. Available in Kindle, ebook, and paperback. We'll see you next Thursday at 3 p.m.
Okay. Thank you guys so much. I think we have to end the podcast.